Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Western Hippie Podcast. I'm your host, Michaela, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Tank and Willie the Corgi. And today, I really feel like is going to be a continuation of last week in a way, because I really just need to get back on the mic. And last week, I talked about how when you fall off a horse, you get back on. And this week, I can kind of notice the way that I explain it is some people, when they look at a puzzle, they see 1,000 pieces. Some people see one puzzle. And then there's me who sees like all the details within the 1,000 pieces. So I'm totally into those puzzles that have all the hidden things in them. Like if you've ever been to Disney and seen a Thomas Kinkade painting, he tends to hide characters or little messages throughout the entire puzzle. And I love those because I love finding those because I can see those details. And so in that, as I love the show, Mr. Monk, as Monk would say, it's a blessing and a curse. So when I went back and listened to the last episode, I actually almost didn't publish it because like one of the things, this was just something that stood out to me. And I'm just like, let's address the elephant in the room, Michaela. And I'm like being conscious of this now is my breathing was really off. Like I was trying to talk so fast that I was running out of air. And so then it was like in the mic, and I did my best to mute as much as I could. And the reality is where I'm at right now is done is better than perfect. And I just need to get the reps back in, and I need to let it be where it's at. And what I need to do is commit to just getting better instead of waiting till it's perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. And I try to remember, if you know Brendon Burchard, he's wrote a book called High Performance Habits. I think his best-selling book is a book called The Motivation Manifesto, I believe. But I was at his conference in early 2020. You probably hear Tank in the background right now. It was early 2020 or late 2019. I went to 2 of his seminars within like 6 months. And one of the things he said is the original definition of perfect was prefect, which meant to make better. And so in order to perfect something, you had to have something to make better. And so I can't make the podcast better if I don't make some shittier podcast. I know that, but then when I'm editing, and especially, you can probably really hear Tank in the background now because he's itching himself because he's being a goober. I wish I had this on video so you can see him. But I'm just so tempted to delete the things that I'm not proud of, especially having a film school background. I know sound, and I know my setup isn't where I want it to be, but it's what it is for now. And I need to just focus on value, because what I also know is from Walter Murch's rule of 6, emotion is more important than anything combined. And I think, what sticks in my head, I don't know if I've ever told this story, is my sound on my semester final in film school was terrible. And I thought I got it really good. And then I thought I fixed it. And then when we put it on the loudspeakers in the auditorium, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I remember the guy behind me saying like, oh my gosh, the sound is terrible. And it was even worse because I thought he was kind of cute. And so then he thought it was bad. And it's funny because years later, I was telling my friend about how insecure I felt when the guy behind me said how bad the sound was. And he said, he didn't even screen any of his films. He didn't even put anything out there. You put something out there. And that is the point that I'm trying to remember. It's like, I got it done. I put something out there. I'm working on making it better. I'm trying not to gasp every 2 seconds. I'm trying to not let myself run out of air. But what I need to praise myself for is, yes, that's great that I'm working on those things, and I'm wanting my podcast to be at a place, or I'm wanting to get good enough that I have full control of my breath. Yes, that is my goal. And yes, that is but what I need to celebrate is that I'm sitting down right now and I'm recording my podcast for the second time. I'm going to have 2 episodes out, or 2 weeks in a row. That's what I need to celebrate. And so what I specifically, you're just getting Tank in the background today because Tank is itching himself. And I don't think Tank has any intention on, oh, maybe he's walking over to the carpet. Willie's over here just laying down, just in a little ball. You look so cute. And then there's Tank, just a Tasmanian turd. He is a turd. You know, when you have those dogs that, oh, yep, see, there he goes again. You know, you've got the dog that's trying to be on his best behavior, trying to do his best, and then the dog that just messes things up, and then the other dog always looks at you like, you know, I wasn't involved in this, right? You know, this was all on him. And it's like, yes, Willie, I know Tank is Tank. We'll just leave it at that. Anyway, Tank went to the other room. And so what is interesting, as I recorded the last podcast, I edited it, noticed all these things, was tempted to either not publish it or to re-record it. And I said, you know what? It's more important that I get it out there. I'm going to submit it to, I use Buzzsprout. I'm going to submit it to Buzzsprout. And the day before it went live on Tuesday. So I'm like, Monday, if I feel so terrible about it, I will just go delete it. But what's interesting is in between uploading it and then obviously Monday, and the podcast is live, so it obviously went out, I watched this video of Ed Sheeran. And Ed Sheeran was playing, and he leaves it up on YouTube, and he was playing this clip of him singing a song he wrote called Addicted when he was about 14. And it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Like, it wasn't kind of bad. It wasn't a little off key. You weren't sitting there listening and thinking a star is born. You know, this kid, I think it's actually JoJo that, you know, sings Leave, Get Out. When she sang Chain of Fools when she was younger, there were certain things that were off pitch, but you could listen to it and you were like, a star is freaking in there. Because when she hits those notes, it is absolutely insane. Like, I still get chills when I think about the first time I heard JoJo sing Chain of Fools. And I was just like, that kid is 13 and can hit a note like a Black woman in the 60s. Are you what? And so that was not the case for 14-year-old Ed Sheeran. And so what was interesting for me in that moment, and one of the things Ed Sheeran said was, you just have to keep going. Like, you just have to get a lot of reps in. So that was my permission slip to just keep. And it's like, I've podcasted before. It's not like I'm totally new to this. It's just that I want to go to the next level, and I'm self-conscious about the fact that I'm not at the next level. And so I'm working through that on the back end. And I realized in that moment, I learned so much more from Ed Sheeran's crappy stuff than I did Ed Sheeran's good stuff. The fact that Ed Sheeran has left that out into the world is so much more powerful than had he taken it down or said, oh yeah, I was a bad singer. No one would have believed him. I don't think Ed Sheeran's kind of a good singer now. I don't think Ed Sheeran's all right. I love Ed Sheeran's voice. What is that album called? I want to say, is it just called X? I'm questioning myself now because obviously Twitter is called X now. So I'm questioning myself, but I think the album itself is just called X. It's the album with Thinking Out Loud on it, with Don't on it. It's a green album cover with I'm almost positive it is a black X. I'd look it up, but I'm trying not to make a ton of noise. And there's a song called A Fire Love. And I believe it's a song he wrote about his grandfather or for his grandfather. And I think his grandfather, because I remember hearing the story about the song, like died of dementia. And it was something, my favorite line is hold me in the arms the way you did last night. And the way that he sings it and the way that he sounds when he's singing it. I don't kind of love his voice in this song. I absolutely adore his voice in this song. It's one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite sounds. It's absolutely stunning. So to hear Ed Sheeran go from not kind of bad, but pretty much terrible to a fire love status, I learned way more than that from that moment. than I could have if Ed Sheeran wouldn't have kept his bad work out, or if Ed Sheeran would have just said, yeah, I was bad. Nobody, we wouldn't have believed him. Like, be honest. If you listen to Ed Sheeran and you're thinking like, go look that up, I encourage you to go look it up, because it was not good. It was not good. And so that was what a story I was telling myself is, let yourself be that version of Ed Sheeran for whoever needs it. Like, it's more important to get started again than it is to do it perfectly. And so it was a reminder of when I am where I want to be with the podcast. And also the only way, Michaela, that I am going to get to where I actually want to be with the podcast is if I sit my ass in the chair and podcast. So that's where I was getting in my head, because after I recorded last week, I wanted to start making the podcast more refined, as in I wanted to have this episode be a little more structured, because my end goal, my vision right now is that I have the YouTube and podcast in conjunction with each other, and that I'm teaching. So I love slide design. I love teaching. I love some of these concepts, like I mentioned in the last episode, that I've been learning for a long time. I'm ready to start teaching them with holistic healing, holistic health, those kind of things. And so in that, my plan for this week was to have a slide deck created and teaching a class essentially on YouTube. And then I would pull the audio from the YouTube, and then I would have it be on the podcast. And the reality is I just need a podcast. I have the vision. I have the plan. I'm creating things to make that that plan more concrete. And I have to meet myself where I'm at. And right now, with the things that I have on my plate, the reality is I just need to sit my butt down in the chair. I need to press record, and I need to celebrate that I sat my butt down in the chair and I press record and leave it at that. So, yeah. So my butt's in the chair. I am recording. And that is what we're going to celebrate today, that we're putting the reps in, that just like Ed Sheeran, we may not be where we want to be now. We may not be as good as we want to be. But if we keep putting in the reps, if we keep putting in the practice, we too will have our version of an Fire Love. I actually don't really have much more to say. So that was just really what was on my mind and heart, was we've all got to start somewhere, and and that's so funny. Okay. What I was just seeing in my mind's eye was, we're going from, because the song that's still on YouTube, I'm pretty sure Ed Sheeran said to just type in Ed Sheeran addicted. We're going from addicted to a Fire Love. And the only way to do that is keep putting, as corny as it is to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and practicing. And I think, it's so weird, because I used to just set these big, audacious goals for myself, and I still have really big, audacious goals, don't get me wrong, but it was that expectation of going from 0 to 100. And last week, what felt good was to just get 1% better each day. And that 1% turns into 2%. The 2% turns into 4%. Like, it's that compound effect. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Short and sweet and to the point. And I don't know that I'm signing off with anything other than this will be going live after Thanksgiving. But I think to just give ourselves that pause to think about what that next step is. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Western Hippie Podcast. Please hit subscribe. And if you feel so called, leave a review. And if there's something specifically you want me to teach on when it comes to holistic healing, whether it be different holistic modalities, I think this might be the first episode, is how I approach when something is wrong with an animal, my thought process, how I approach it, how I come up with the game plan. But if there's something specifically or a specific ailment that you're experiencing, or that your dog is experiencing, or even your horse is experiencing, I'm going to get into that as well. Please send me a DM on Instagram at Miss Michaela May. and just ask me. I'll help as much as I can in the DMs. And then also I will turn it into a podcast episode where I can flesh out the entire idea and strategy of what we need. So those are the 3 things. If you feel so called, subscribe, leave a review, send me a DM with something you would like me to teach on. And I hope you had, by the time this goes live, I'm recording it pre-Thanksgiving, so it's a little weird, but by the time this goes live, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Western Hippie Podcast, and I will talk to you soon.